Welcome to Livy Stories, where real-life stories come to life. If you're fascinated by true, emotional, and surprising stories, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Your support motivates me to keep sharing these unforgettable stories with you. Now, let's dive into today's story. I vividly remember the way my mother's voice trembled on that fateful evening. I gracefully declined their invitation. I expressed to them that such conduct was utterly outrageous, yet they persisted, undeterred. They simply couldn't release their grip on it. And then, a spark ignited in the air. Then, I surrendered to the allure. If I had simply turned around and left the room, I could have completely prevented the unfolding of these events. Yet, I refrained. And now, I must embrace the consequences of my actions. It is said that certain moments linger in the shadows of your memory, captivating your heart endlessly. Some choices alter the very fabric of our lives, and regardless of the passage of time, the chance to return is forever lost. It has been 3 years since that fateful evening. 3 years since I ventured into uncharted territory I never imagined I would dare to explore. I had always envisioned myself as someone of virtue. He was a person of integrity, possessing grace under pressure. This individual possessed a keen understanding of both virtue and vice. However, I have come to understand a profound truth about life. When one reaches their limits, a sense of loneliness permeates their essence, causing every breath to be a challenge. And those closest to you gaze into your soul, urging you to yield to their desires. At times, the boundaries become delightfully indistinct. There are moments when you find yourself lost in the shadows of your desires, only to realize too late the reflection staring back at you. Before I unveil my tale, do remember to subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga for more captivating and revealing confessions that will leave you breathless. Do share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever encountered a temptation so alluring, so utterly irresistible, that it transformed your world entirely? My past acquaintances would have called me a devoted husband, a devoted brother. He was also a devoted son. They might have whispered that I was dependable, accountable. He is a gentleman who values the bonds of family above all else, and I certainly did. I always have. Yet, what they could never perceive, what I concealed from all, was the profound solitude that lingered beneath the surface. The sort of solitude that doesn't merely linger by your side. It takes residence within your very soul. It weaves itself into the very essence of your being. It lingers in every corner, a tantalizing presence that refuses to be dismissed. My wife and I had drifted apart. Our connection had transformed into something unrecognizable. Once, our hearts danced in a passionate embrace. At the very least, that is what I believe we were. It's a challenge to recall those moments now. Somewhere along the way, the vibrant hues of passion simply dimmed. We continued to share the same roof, entwined in a delicate dance of proximity and unspoken desires. Our conversations lingered, filled with unspoken desires. Yet, the exchanges were fleeting. The exchanges were both empty and alluring, as if two souls brushed past one another in a dimly lit corridor, their paths entwined for but a fleeting moment. She was perpetually occupied, her days filled with a whirlwind of activities, labor, companions. Her realm appeared to have drifted away from my reach, leaving me in a shadow of longing, and I ceased my efforts. I reassured myself that it was simply part of the allure. Such is the fate that befalls a union with the passage of time. The fervor fades away. The warmth begins to dissipate. You drift into the realm of mere cohabitation, losing the spark that once ignited your passion. Yet, that void began to consume me, whispering secrets of longing and desire. Somewhere along the way, I lost the essence of what it meant to be a husband. I found myself drifting away from the essence of my masculinity. And that was the moment they approached me, my beloved mother, my dear sister. Each of them, beautifully flawed in their own enchanting manner. Each of them yearns for a connection, a spark that ignites their desires. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, someone craved my presence. My mother exuded a captivating strength that was both inspiring and admirable. She nurtured us alone through the tender years of our youth. My father left in our youth, swept away by the allure of someone younger, someone fresh and enticing. Perhaps that was the moment it all began. The haunting dread of being left behind. She yearned to grasp something, anything, that would envelop her in a cocoon of safety and warmth. She always maintained an air of strength, never revealing her vulnerabilities to anyone. Yet, I beheld it. There was a certain allure in the way her hands would tremble, a delicate dance of vulnerability that she believed went unnoticed by the world around her. Her grip on those around her was fervent, a desperate attempt to keep them close. fearing they might vanish as my father once did. And then there was my sister, a captivating enigma in her own right. She was a radiant darling. She was destined to achieve perfection. The individual is destined for an idyllic existence, adorned with a flawless union. Yet, life often unfolds in ways that defy our expectations. Her husband, oh, he was far more troublesome than mine. Chilling, dominating. He is the type of man who captivates your heart, leaving you feeling both captivated and confined within the confines of your own sanctuary. She would call me in the stillness of the night, her voice a soft murmur, careful not to let him catch a hint of our secret. She confided in me about her sense of entrapment, that she sensed herself fading away into the shadows. I ought to have recognized it in that moment. I ought to have understood the desires she harbored within her heart. They both pursued these desires. What started out as a straightforward family vacation took an unexpected turn. The weekend proved to be a delightful escape. A secluded cabin nestled in the enchanting woods. Whispered secrets linger in the air. Intimacy envelops us. It was just the three of us, immersed in our own private realm. My wife possessed a certain charm, a reason for everything, as she always did. Labor. A rendezvous was arranged at the 11th hour. There's a compelling reason to linger a little longer. For the first time in an eternity, I felt completely alone. I felt completely alone in their presence. It was just the three of us, immersed in our world. At first, it felt like a familiar embrace. We shared a delightful laugh. We shared the kitchen, our hands brushing against each other as we created something delicious together. We sipped wine by the flickering fireplace, the warmth enveloping us like a secret embrace. Yet, an intoxicating essence lingered in the atmosphere. There was an ineffable feeling, a moment of quiet tension in the air. My mother gazed at me, believing I was lost in my world, held a certain allure that was both captivating and intriguing. The lingering brush of my sister's fingers against my arm was a moment that lasted slightly longer than expected. The way the wine unshackled our words, coaxing forth confessions we might have otherwise kept hidden. In retrospect, perhaps I should have been more aware. My mother's voice quivered with emotion as she spoke. My sister's gaze lingered on mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The silence lingered between us, thick and electric, poised in anticipation of a moment that would shatter its stillness. Perhaps I should have recognized it in that moment. Perhaps I should have put an end to it before it had the chance to unfold. Yet, I refrained, and by the moment I became aware of the unfolding events, the hour had grown too late, enveloped in an atmosphere of unspoken desires. There are times in life when you find yourself at a momentous juncture. Deep down, you feel like one more step would cross a threshold from which you cannot return. I experienced that exquisite moment. In that fleeting moment, I found myself at a crossroads, contemplating a choice that could have altered everything. I might have chosen to turn my back. Yet, I refrained, and that night, the world shifted in ways we never anticipated. It began with the allure of the wine. That is the narrative I weave for myself. After all, perhaps if we had chosen to take a step back, the evening might have turned out differently. Yet we pressed on, undeterred. We continued to indulge in the flowing libations. We persistently sipped our drinks with a hint of mischief. And gradually, the atmosphere enveloping us transformed. We intended it to be a captivating event. We are raising a toast to the bonds that bind us, woven with love and a hint of intrigue. This toast is dedicated to our union. Yet, as the glasses dwindled, so too did the distance that lingered between us. The laughter faded into a soft whisper. The dialogues took on a more intimate allure. And before I realized it, our conversation had drifted far from the realm of family. I recall my mother poised elegantly across from me, the flickering firelight dancing upon the glass she held delicately, her fingers gripping the stem with such intensity that I feared it might break under the pressure. Her gaze lingered on me, a look that transcended the ordinary bond of mother and son. A lady gazes upon a gentleman, and then my sister whispered sweetly, perched beside me. She was intimate and tantalizingly near, perhaps even closer than propriety would permit. The warmth of her body pressed against mine sent shivers down my spine, and I noticed the subtle hitch in her breath just before the words escaped her lips. Do you ever sense that, perhaps, no one truly perceives the depths of your being? It was a question laced with an air of intrigue. It ought to have been, without a doubt. Yet, there lingered an intriguing secret beneath the surface. Something untamed. This sensation sparked a delightful tension within me. I hesitated before responding. I'm uncertain if I possess the ability to do so. The truth was undeniably in her hands. I found myself enveloped in a shroud of invisibility. For years, I have held on to this secret. My mother set her glass down with a delicate touch, her fingers lingering on the rim as if savoring a secret moment. Her voice softened as she spoke again, yet a sense of urgency lingered just beneath the surface. You pour your heart out, yet what do you truly receive in exchange? I swallowed with a slight hesitation, my throat inexplicably parched. This conversation was not something I desired to embark upon. I am not with them. My dear, I am not here to be with them. Yet, the moment had slipped away. The words lingered in the air, dancing between us, finding a home in the hidden corners we had long feigned ignorance of. In a moment that felt charged with unspoken intimacy, my sister's hand gracefully intertwined with mine. I'm not quite sure how it all unfolded. Perhaps it was the allure of the wine. Perhaps it was the way the room seemed to shrink, as if the very walls were drawing closer, enveloping us in an intimate embrace. Perhaps it was simply destined to unfold, her fingers entwined with mine, delicate and inviting, and I remained close, savoring the moment. I should have made a different choice. I should have walked away before it went too far. Yet, I refrained, and then my mother uttered a remark that sent a shiver down my spine. Embrace the warmth of a companionship. Solitude is no longer your only option. Her gaze was elsewhere when the words slipped from her lips. Her gaze lingered on someone else, filled with unspoken desire. She was at my sister's place. My sister's gaze remained fixed on me. There was an unmistakable clarity in their intentions. There was no doubt about their intentions. My heart raced with a fervor that echoed in my ears. My hands quivered with a delightful anticipation. My thoughts urged me to halt this enchanting dance before it spiraled into something more daring. However, my sister whispered it so softly that it almost escaped my ears. Is it truly a fault to yearn for love's embrace? And in that very moment, everything fell apart. Every part of my being crumbled into exquisite fragments. I promised myself I would never venture into forbidden territory. Yet, in that moment, their words pierced through my defenses, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. And that was the moment I realized I irrevocably chose the path ahead. Sleep eluded me that night. As thoughts danced in my mind like whispers of a forbidden romance, I reclined in bed, gazing at the ceiling. As the wind whispered against the cabin walls, my heartbeat echoing in my ears like a secret melody, I convinced myself it was merely the effects of the wine. We had overindulged, and the whispered confessions at the table were merely fleeting illusions. Yet, deep down, I was aware that it was nothing but a deception. For in the quiet of my mind, her gaze lingered, a captivating blend of familiarity and unspoken allure. My mother's voice enveloped me in a tender whisper that lingered in the air, impossible to forget. Is it truly a fault to yearn for love's embrace? I whispered it to myself again and again, hoping to sway my heart into believing that I had misinterpreted the truth. Their intentions were not as I had imagined them to be. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. I had always been aware. I was not without my virtues. I found myself yearning to embrace that notion. Yet that evening, as I lay enveloped in darkness, the cabin's walls seemed to draw closer, and I sensed a delicate fracture begin within me. I attempted to distance myself from the allure, to recall my true essence, to listen for the sweet echo of my wife's voice in my mind, though it had been ages since it had wrapped around me with tenderness. Yet, all that reached my ears was the soft, tantalizing whisper of my sister. Her gaze was filled with an intensity that suggested I was the missing piece in a puzzle she had long sought to complete, a revelation that stirred something deep within me. For the first time in years, a delightful sense of being desired washed over me. I felt appreciated. What was it that drew me in? I found it quite delightful. The following morning, I resolved to maintain an air of composure. I decided to set aside the memories of the previous night and pretend as if it had never happened. As I stepped into the kitchen, I found my sister already ensconced in the warm glow of the morning light. At first, she remained silent, a mystery wrapped in allure. She lingered by the counter, her fingers delicately cradling a cup of coffee, gazing at me with an intensity that suggested she was anticipating a moment of undeniable connection. An electric tension lingered in the atmosphere, a silent connection weaving itself between us. I parted my lips, ready to utter a word, any word, but then her smile captivated me entirely, and for some inexplicable reason, a delightful flutter stirred within me. It was not a feeling of trepidation. I was not filled with revulsion. However, I found myself fully immersed in an entirely distinct world, a certain something I preferred to keep unnamed. On that day, our conversation flowed like a gentle river, more intimate than it had been in years. Our conversations danced on the edge of propriety. There was a deep yearning for the potential that lay ahead. What ifs, those tantalizing whispers of possibility that dance on the edge of desire. Awakening from slumber beside a figure who has ignored your presence is a powerful sensation. She confided in me about the exquisite entrapment that weighed upon her heart. I confessed to her that my feelings mirrored hers, and when our mother entered the room, she chose to remain silent. She gracefully joined our company, her presence igniting a spark of intrigue, and the three of us lingered there, in that cabin, enveloped by a captivating silence. We were all acutely aware of the unfolding events. We all played our parts, feigning ignorance of the undeniable truth. It began with a whisper. A hand rested on my shoulder, lingering just long enough to ignite a spark of intrigue. A laugh ignited a sense of intimacy. The caress was more than just physical contact. It was my mother, her delicate fingers gently sweeping a strand of hair from my forehead, lingering just a moment longer against my skin. It was my sister, her head gently resting against my shoulder, sighing as if this moment had been the culmination of a lifetime of longing. I ought to have stepped back, yet I refrained. I whispered to myself that nothing had transpired. I had committed no transgression. Yet that evening, slumber eluded me. I lay awake, gazing at the wooden beams above my bed, reliving each caress, each lingering glance, and every softly spoken word that danced in the air. What was the most intriguing part? I found myself not only fearful of my actions, but also captivated by the thrill of their consequences. I found myself hesitant, caught in the allure of my desires. For the first time in ages, a sense of companionship enveloped me, banishing the solitude that had lingered for so long, and that filled me with a thrill more potent than any fear. I was aware of the transgression. However, their gaze remained fixed on me. Their pleas were utterly captivating. How could I possibly resist? Then came the enchanting night. Everything unraveled in a most unexpected manner. That night, an undeniable change lingered in the air. The atmosphere was palpable, heavy, and intoxicating. It enveloped us in its embrace. Unspoken desires lingered in the air as silence enveloped the room. None had the courage to voice the unspoken desire. Yet, in the hush, unspoken words danced between us, revealing all that needed to be known. We strolled along a delicate precipice, each of us feigning ignorance of the alluring abyss that beckoned below. Yet, beneath the surface, I believe we all sensed it. We had begun to lose our grip on the delicate balance we once maintained. It unfolded in the stillness. This outcome did not occur in a moment of grand theatrics. This goal isn't achieved through an extravagant or daring gesture. However, it is achieved in a more delicate form. There was something destined to unfold. I can't quite recall who made the first move. Perhaps the fault lies with me. Perhaps it was she who ignited the spark. Perhaps it was my mother, observing from the shadows, poised with anticipation, longing for something to unfold. However, as the evening progressed, my sister and I found ourselves in a moment of solitude. The wine had been cascading throughout the evening, each sip igniting a spark of allure. Our mother had retired for the night, or so we convinced ourselves in the dim light of the evening. The fire had dwindled to embers, casting a warm, seductive glow in the soft light. And the only sound was the soft cadence of our breaths entwined in the stillness. I ought to have taken my leave. I ought to have ascended the stairs, closed the door behind me, and surrendered to the embrace of slumber. Yet, I chose to remain. Her gaze lingered on me, as if she were on a quest for something elusive and profound. It was a gift I was hesitant to give her. I hesitated to offer her a gift of my heart. Yet, in that moment, her voice broke the silence, delicate, uncertain. Perhaps we ought to reconsider our choices. Her voice quivered with an alluring intensity, yet she remained close, unwilling to break the connection. Nor did I. It transcended mere desire. It was a matter of profound significance. There was a hint of perilous allure. It was about desire. I longed to be desired, to be admired. She craved a spark, a whisper of passion to break the chains of the suffocating emptiness that had enveloped her for far too long. We were two souls yearning for an elusive desire that danced just beyond our grasp. In that exquisite moment, it seemed as though we were the sole souls in existence, wrapped in our own enchanting universe. Yet, the weight of guilt lingered in the shadows. It lingered between us, an uninvited presence that stirred the air with its tension. The whisper of my conscience was pleading, urging me to cease my reckless pursuits. I felt a sense of disconnection from my true self. Keep in mind the allure of what should not be. Yet, a voice long concealed within the shadows of my heart began to murmur a different tale. It whispered to me that this moment was destined to unfold. It seemed as though fate had meticulously planned each step, leading us to this remarkable moment. And I found myself lost, unsure of which whisper to heed in the tangled web of desire. The following morning, there was an expectation that the air would be charged with a new kind of magic, yet it remained unfulfilled. Initially, it was not so. We maintained an air of normalcy, or at the very least, we made an attempt. However, the way her gaze lingered on me from across the kitchen table was utterly captivating. I sensed the delicate unraveling of our connection. What is the most alluring feature? A daring whisper within me urged me to continue, to embrace the thrill of the moment. It was a delightful thrill, a whisper of excitement in the air. The allure was exhilarating and captivating. The allure of hidden truths captivates me. We exchanged furtive glances in secret to maintain our anonymity. We understood that we were in a precarious situation, poised to take a drastic turn at any given time. It set my heart racing. It ignited a fire within me. Yet, hidden beneath the exhilaration, lay a whisper of trepidation, the thrill of being discovered. It was heartening to know that someone was paying attention. The situation was even more concerning. I was filled with anxiety that I might not feel anything at all. It had transcended the boundaries of our private world. Whispers began to circulate. Then we lingered in close proximity. The essence of our conversations held a tantalizing secret just beneath the surface of our words. It seemed as though she had been waiting for this moment all along. And then, a whisper of fate intertwined our paths. In that moment, we lost our footing. It was an unforeseen turn of events. There was a momentary lapse in judgment. The lingering touch ignited a spark of desire. A glance that lingered for an excessive amount of time ignited hidden longings. It was a moment filled with joy and mischief. And in that moment, the secret slipped from our grasp, revealing itself to others. I was convinced that we were in control of our destiny. I imagined the dance could remain our little secret. I believed we could pause this enchanting dance at our leisure. But then, my sister whispered a secret that transformed the entire evening. This revelation sent a shiver down my spine. This revelation deeply stirred my heart. There was no turning back now. A tantalizing moment arrives. It's a fleeting moment when you realize you've stepped over a delicate line. Surrendering to the allure is inevitable. Regardless of your intentions and despite the whispers of resolve that echo in your mind, for days, perhaps even weeks, I had been whispering sweet reassurances to myself, telling myself that I was in control of my desires. This was a secret we could cherish in the shadows. As long as the secret remained unspoken, it remained hidden in the shadows of desire. It was but a fleeting illusion. Yet, in that moment, her words slipped from her lips. She was my sister, and her gaze held a depth of emotions that I could not ignore. Yet, within her gaze lingered an alluring hint of peril, and she whispered, "There's no need for you to return." This applies to simple expressions. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I attempted to stifle a laugh. I let it slip away. Yet, her lips remained uncurled. She spoke with a seriousness that left no room for doubt. Her hands clutched the fabric of my shirt, knuckles pale and tense. "Stay," she murmured, her voice a soft caress in the dim light. In our embrace, we are in each other's company. In that exquisite moment, I knew for sure the subject had transformed into something far more intriguing. The outcome was truly extraordinary. The situation was too complicated for me to ignore. Perhaps I was reluctant to turn my back on what we shared. We remained blissfully oblivious to the approaching footsteps. Perhaps we were aware of the approaching footsteps, but we chose to ignore them. Perhaps we were so enmeshed in our own enchanting reverie, our delightful fantasy, that we failed to notice the presence of others around us. The moment had slipped away, leaving only whispers of what could have been. My mother's voice cut through the atmosphere with an unexpected sharpness. "Ah, so you have decided on your path." I turned, my heart racing wildly within its confines. She lingered in the doorway, a vision of allure and mystery. She watched with a hint of intrigue in her eyes, yearning. The look in her eyes was unmistakable. It was not a surprise. It was something far more intriguing. It was an experience unlike any other. There was something more intriguing about the experience. I anticipated her to let out a cry of surprise. She was expected to cast aspersions upon us. The intention is to obstruct our aspirations. Yet she chose not to. She lingered in that moment. Captivating and enigmatic, she observed the scene with a lingering gaze. And then she breathed softly into the night. It was meant to be my moment. The room swayed gently. It was as if the very earth beneath my feet had been swept away, leaving me in a dizzying swirl of uncertainty. I believed I must have misunderstood her words. Yet, she whispered it once more. It was meant to be my moment, not hers. And that was the moment I came to a delightful revelation. She had been yearning for something as well. The gravity of her words lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken promises. It enveloped me like a seductive tide, pulling me under into a realm of exquisite confusion. Perhaps I did grasp the essence of it all. Perhaps I had sensed it all along. Perhaps that was the most exquisite torment of all. As she moved closer, her hand extended, and her fingers quivered delicately against my skin, I remained close, unwilling to break the connection. I ought to have fled. How I wish I had turned that cabin to ashes before allowing this tragedy to unfold. Yet, I refrained. That was an enchanting night. Everything that was once whole unraveled into chaos. I had committed a crime for which there was no forgiveness. I had a feeling all along. The atmosphere was charged, a subtle shift that whispered of unspoken desires. As my sister averted her gaze, a silent tension lingered between us. My mother stood there, poised and silent, observing as if she had triumphed in a delicate game of hearts. Regret should have graced my heart. Dread should have consumed me. But what could be more tantalizing than the most unfortunate twist? It's the aspect that lingers in my thoughts long after the world has quieted down. I haven't reached that stage yet. I believed that was the most challenging moment. I believed that was the moment destined to shatter my very soul. Yet, I found myself mistaken. It is the true haunting that lingers. The true intrigue was only just unfolding. I believed I could manage it with grace. I envisioned this delightful secret remaining just ours, if we simply embraced the ordinary and continued as though the world had not shifted beneath us. It would eventually dissolve into the shadows, vanish into the night. Yet, whispers of such secrets linger in the shadows, refusing to fade away. They linger, a tantalizing secret beneath the surface. They flourish. Regardless of how fervently you attempt to conceal them, they flourish. They possess an undeniable allure that inevitably draws them into the light. The following morning, an air of anticipation lingered, leaving everyone feeling disengaged. The atmosphere in this cabin was charged with an intoxicating allure, more voluptuous, more substantial, as if the very walls had absorbed our passionate encounters. Now they seemed to exhale our secrets back upon us, enveloping us in their intimate embrace. We chose to remain silent on the matter. It was not a direct conversation. Yet, I sensed it in the way my sister averted her gaze from mine. In this manner, my mother lingered just a touch too close. Observing with keen interest, she remained vigilant at all times. I quietly reassured myself that it was only a dream. I must have been lost in a daydream. It was then that the missteps began to unfold. It began with the smallest of gestures. My sister's hand brushed against mine at the breakfast table, lingering for a moment that felt far too long. The manner in which my mother addressed me had a certain inflection that was transformed now. There was a hint of an irresistible allure in her tone. Text, the way I recoiled at the sound of my wife's voice, as if she could sense the unspoken secrets lingering in the air. I convinced myself that my secret remained hidden from prying eyes. It was utterly impossible for anyone to unravel the delicate threads of the situation. Yet, in that moment, the first hint of imperfection emerged. The evening unfolded over a candlelit dinner. They engaged in a delightful exchange of words. My mother, my sister, and I gathered around the table, sharing whispers and laughter that danced in the air. With an air of serene confidence, my mother glanced between us, her demeanor effortlessly poised as she spoke. It seems the two of you have been sharing quite an intimate connection lately. Silence enveloped the room, a charged pause hanging in the air. My sister's fork danced audibly against her plate, a delicate interruption in the evening's intimate ambiance. My heart raced, a thrilling rhythm echoing in my ears. I let out a soft, reluctant chuckle. I forced myself to utter a few words that might border on humor. But my dear sister, her silence conveyed a powerful message, and my mother simply smiled, a knowing glimmer in her eyes. She appeared to be fully aware of the situation. In that instant, I realized the present was a memory too precious to let slip away. We found ourselves enmeshed in a mystery that whispered of passion. We were savoring every moment, and it was merely a question of time before it unraveled all that surrounded it. It was my wife who first caught the hint of intrigue. She sensed an undeniable allure, a whisper of something exquisite just beyond her grasp. I was utterly captivated by the manner in which I found myself. I lingered for a moment before responding to her. The way my phone lingered in my hand was a tantalizing moment before I responded to a message that was perhaps best left untouched in the shadows of desire. One enchanting evening, she boldly inquired of me, "Is there another heart that captures your attention?" And for a fleeting, tantalizingly dangerous moment, I nearly confessed to her. I didn't feel a strong desire to reveal my secrets. Yet, it was my desire to escape that drove me. Ah, my mother. Indeed, she embraced the thrill of the unknown. She moved through the evening with an air of daring, as if the weight of consequence held no sway over her heart. She certainly carried herself as though she possessed one. Her gaze lingered on me, filled with an intriguing intensity. Each whispered syllable, she executed each gesture with grace. It seemed as though she had been eagerly awaiting this moment. She seemed to be challenging me. And then, one enchanting night, she whispered something that lingers in my mind, echoing endlessly. She leaned in tantalizingly, her voice a sultry whisper, and spoke, "Welcome to our enchanting circle. There is no turning back now." And the thrilling thing, a fragment of my heart found truth in her words. I had lost the essence of who I once was. I had transformed into something entirely new. It was a transformation that defied my comprehension. The weight of guilt should have been overwhelming. It ought to have shattered my very essence. Yet, it remained unfulfilled. Hidden beneath the veil of modesty, I found myself yearning to continue. And I believe they were aware of it. Perhaps that's the very reason they never extended the invitation to me. I thought we were in control of our destiny. I had hoped we could maintain a sense of discretion. I believed we were being so discreet. However, that moment changed everything. A secret has been unveiled. What led us to this moment? Each day, I find myself pondering that very question. What led me to transform into this intriguing individual? How did I allow this to unfold so deeply? I once believed I possessed a certain charm. I was steadfast in my convictions. Ethics. I was aware of the delicate line that separates virtue from vice. However, at this particular moment, I was aware of the delicate line that separates virtue from vice. Currently, I find myself lost in a haze of uncertainty about who I truly am. There are nights I awaken, breathless, ensnared by the weight of my choices. In the realm of my dreams, her visage dances before me, captivating and enchanting. Her gaze held a certain allure, a captivating innocence that lingered just before the shadows of doubt began to dance in her eyes, like a delicate waltz of intrigue. I observe my sister's delicate hands, quivering as they extend toward me, as though I were the sole beacon of hope in her tumultuous world. I catch a glimpse of my mother's smile, knowing and content, as if she had foreseen every twist of fate long before I ever could. And what could be more tantalizing? I yearn for it intensely. They linger in my thoughts, a captivating presence that enchants my nights. I still awaken with a longing for the exquisite moments we shared. Was it truly worth the risk? That question has danced through my mind countless times, lingering like a forbidden secret waiting to be unveiled. Oh, how I long to utter a denial. I wish I could articulate that I would seize every moment, should the chance present itself. I long to go back to that enchanting first night in the cabin, to erase every hushed confession, every furtive gaze, and every instant we allowed the boundaries to fade away. I would, indeed. But what of the truth? The reality is, I'm uncertain. The experience we had together was undeniably exhilarating, a seductive dance that straddled the boundaries of propriety, infused with allure and secrecy. However, in that moment, I experienced a vibrant sense of life unlike anything I had ever experienced before, and that is the very thought that lingers in my mind, stealing away my peaceful slumber. If only I could turn back time and embrace the moments once more. I find it difficult to imagine holding back. I've contemplated revealing my deepest feelings. I've contemplated the moment of sitting my beloved down, gazing deeply into her eyes, and unveiling all that lies within my heart. I've imagined the way her expression might contort, revealing layers of disdain, sorrow, and perhaps even a touch of bitterness. I find myself pondering her next moves. Would she cry out in delight? Weep? Would she slip away into the night, or linger just long enough to leave me yearning? Yet, there exists another side of my being. Let the secret that whispers stay hidden. The moment that whispers to me not to set ablaze the remnants of my existence is here. The phrase that whispers, "No one ever has to find out," resonates deeply. Perhaps there is some truth to that. Perhaps I can embrace this hidden truth. Perhaps I shall take it with me to the very end. However, that moment is now. The phone chimed softly, breaking the stillness of the evening. The hour was late. Cloaked in a seductive hush, my wife lay beside me, lost in a tranquil slumber, her breath a gentle rhythm of trust and serenity. I found myself hesitating to respond. I should have ignored it. Yet, an irresistible urge beckoned me to answer. Finally, I made the decision. Her voice danced through the line, a whisper of allure that lingered in the air. She was definitely not my sister. She was certainly not my mother, another soul. He was a confidant who understood the unspoken desires, and just when I believed the final curtain had fallen, I came to understand that the present moment was merely the dawn of something exquisite. I find myself uncertain of how everything will turn out. I find myself questioning whether I can move forward. One day, the weight of this hidden truth might catch up with me. Yet, there is one truth I hold dear. I must not be alone in this sentiment. Surely, I am not the only soul who has found themselves at the precipice of temptation, daring to cross into the alluring unknown. Pray, share your thoughts with me. What would you have chosen to do had you found yourself in my position, ensnared by the delicate dance of guilt and longing, caught between unwavering loyalty and the sweet allure of temptation? Would you have chosen to turn away, or would you have chosen the path I took? I indulged in every comment. Each tale carries a whispered secret. Whisper sweet nothings to me. Perhaps, just perhaps, I will find solace in the company of others. I find solace in the company of others. If you desire more tales of hidden passions, more truths that linger in the shadows, then indulge yourself. Whisper your thoughts. Indulge in the allure of connection. This story is a tantalizing tale of betrayal and desire. There is an abundance of secrets I long to share with you. Isolation can lead one to explore desires they never thought possible. It gently unravels the pieces of your soul that you believed were steadfast, leaving them beautifully fragmented. It murmurs softly in your ear, suggesting that the constraints of propriety have faded away. That single moment, that delicate touch, that fateful decision can transform everything in an instant. But that is merely a charming deception. This phenomenon occurs as a result of specific mistakes. There are certain missteps that linger in the shadows, forever etched in the heart's memory. Exercise caution in what you surrender to. Certain temptations can captivate you. Certain allures require the highest level of sacrifice. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If it touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe to Levy Stories. Your support means the world to me and encourages me to bring more impactful, real-life stories just like this one. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next video.